In the world of play and in the world of toys, there seems to be something almost kind of magical and mystifying about a lost toy. Now, this can take on a lot of forms. It can be, a forgotten toy, a toy that's left behind. And this concept, well, it's been used in a lot of content over the years as the inspiration behind everything from plays to movies to books to radio dramas. Radio dramas? I don't know, maybe not so much. But yeah, it's frightening, right? The concept of a lost toy. These are playthings, these are part of our childhood. It's something that is a transitional object for children and how they relate to the world. Who can forget the classic Velveteen Rabbit? It's all a story about a child losing their beloved toy. Well, I guess this one is taken away for health reasons, but that's not important right now. The point is, the concept of lost toys is, well, it's tragic, right? Absolutely. For children, it's tragic. For parents, it's tragic. But what about for adult collectors? For us, toys are something that's precious, that we've spent a lot of time acquiring and accumulating and taking care of for a lot longer than our childhood. And by lost toy, I'm not talking about things that don't get produced. That's actually a whole other category of lost toys, and I could probably make several YouTube videos about things. We still hear stories about trying to uncover the Mad Bubbler from Thundercats, a toy that was shown in a catalog but never produced. Actually, this isn't the only example of that. There's a whole mess of toys from the 80s that tend to show up in catalogs because, well, catalogs have to get printed long before the product hits market, which is why the second wave of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves still is without a home, or that, hero from the Powers of Grayskull line from 1987 that would have continued the He-Man line if, sales had not tanked. All right, so that's a whole other concept, but losing a toy, not being able to find it. And yes, I agree, a child losing a beloved toy is absolutely a terrible, terrible thing. And that we could do a whole video about the psychology of that, and again, transitional objects and the emotional need. But when an adult collector loses a toy, this is like, no, your whole world is falling apart. And I know because I've experienced this, and I want to talk about that. I want to kind of share this. It's one of those things that's burned into your brain, like you know exactly where you were, when Kennedy was shot, although I wasn't born when Kennedy was shot. Or, where you were when you found out Firefly was canceled. These are the things that just burn into your soul, and you can remember exactly where you were. And I think a lot of that is because we are so invested in our collection. We have spent years, if not decades, getting our shelf exactly the way we want it. Exactly the right version of characters, exactly the right scale. We may even replace figures with better versions that come out later on. This display of Jabba's palace that I have in my office, this took me at least a week to acquire. Well, okay, a week plus, 20 years. So, yeah, we're invested. We have spent a lot of time, energy, money, and emotion. So, I remember every lost toy I've had. My first one, in the modern line, not being a kid, it was Grindin Longsnoot from Power of the Force 2. I've made a video about adult collectors carrying action figures around in their pocket and why they do that. And I know you all do this too. Check out the video. I'll link it at the end of this one if you want to see more. But yeah, this was my pocket figure for some reason that day in college. And I remember I was at Buchanan Hall at UC Santa Barbara, and I know I had him in my pocket when I went in, and when I came out, he wasn't there. And I was just like, no, this is part of my complete collection. Luckily, I was able to go down to State Street, and there was I think a Walgreens or a CVS that randomly actually had this figure in stock because Santa Barbara was always like 2 years behind everyone else. So, crisis averted. I was able to get a replacement. Luckily, this figure wasn't that old. Meaning, it wasn't that many years old, and the aftermarket wasn't that high. Actually, you could probably buy that figure for like $1 now. Another one, Star Wars related, that actually was a bigger issue was Reese. So this was a character also from Power of the Force 2, but had extremely limited release because it came out during the transition into a new branding. And was fortunate enough to have found it at Disneyland. Growing up in Orange County, California, Everyone in my high school had a season pass. This is when the season passes were like $199. It was like, you would just go hang out at Disneyland. And of course, the place I loved hanging out was the Star Trader, which was one of the only places to buy Star Wars merch back in the 90s, back before you could buy Star Wars merchandise everywhere now. And that was where I found Reese. And I was like, whoa, this figure is like so hard to find. I can't believe I found it. I was even willing to pay Disney markup, which at the time was $10 for figures that were otherwise $4.99. But I didn't care because it completed my collection. Well, I also remember exactly where I was when I lost him. I was at the Mission Viejo Toys R Us on a toy hunt. He was in my pocket when I started the toy hunt, and when I got back in the car, no Reese. So what did I do? I drove straight to Disneyland, ran right to the Star Trader, and I was like, thank Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, Moses, anyone else, Zeus, Osiris, I don't care who I have to praise. They had another one in stock. It was just sitting there. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't even expecting it. But I was just so relieved to keep my collection complete, especially for a figure hard to find. All right, my biggest loss, though, happened when I moved from California to North Carolina right before the COVID shutdown. It was when we moved. And I keep all of my Star Wars action figures in these little chest and drawers. They're usually used for like bolts, nuts, screws, nails. I use them for Star Wars action figures. It's a great way to keep track of them and not lose the accessories. Well, the movers didn't follow my instructions and they didn't put them in a bigger box. They actually just wrapped like tape around them. So when they got to North Carolina, so many accessories were like mixed up and missing. I had to spend weeks going through every drawer and noting which ones were missing. And luckily I was able to replace most of them. Although the loss that still kills me is I bagged up all of my 6-inch figures, accounted for every single one. I inventoried the whole thing, but one baggie just never showed up. I've been searching for it for 4 years, and I know exactly who was in it. I had my Pyro figure from Toy Biz Marvel Legends, which wasn't the biggest loss because this figure has actually now been replaced by a superior version, so I'm not totally crying spilled milk over this one, but it was more just like, ugh, that was my figure. I had that figure, and I know it was in that bag. So, yeah, I mean, they've come out with this much better one that came with Rogue, and I actually wound up finding it for like $30 for the 2-pack at GameStop on sale, and then, donated Rogue to my daughter's school. So, Pyro wasn't too expensive there. As opposed to, I think it had an SRP of like $60. I was glad to get it 50% off. And yeah, it's a better figure. I mean, the scale is better, the colors are better, it's got swappable heads, and, yada, yada, yada. So I didn't totally melt down over this one the way I did over Reeves. It also had my extra multiple mans. I had 3 multiple mans. Multiple mans? I don't know. 3 Jamie Broddocks. And when 2 of them were in the bag with Pyro, one of them was in my regular, I guess, X-Men bag. So again, getting to North Carolina, I was like, no, where are the rest of my multiple men? I had to go out and replace them. Luckily, they were still like $30. Now he goes for like 100. So, yeah, crisis avoided. But that's also why it's so annoying when we lose figures because they go up in value. In fact, the biggest one I lost was this guy, and that was the one that really killed me. Not the whole set here. I'm talking about Peter Parker there in the middle. So this was the Peter Parker Spider-Man that came with the San Diego Comic-Con Raft set. It was a slight retool remake of the Pizza Spider-Man, which I never purchased. I just did not like the way the eyes were done. It just wasn't my Spider-Man, so I held off. But when they re-released this figure with a new head and slightly darker colors, which looked so 90s, which was my, kind of time of reading comic books, I was like, oh, heck yeah. And so I bought this figure on the secondary market because I didn't buy the whole set. And, this was like the one that looked like jumped right out of Todd McFarlane's pen. And I was so excited to get this version of Spider-Man. And the fact that this Spider-Man was in that baggie with Pyro and 2 of my multiple mans, oh, God, it killed me. I had to rebuy him, and it was like over $100 to rebuy him at this point. But, we have to have a complete collection, and it's what drives us. The idea of missing something that you once had. We've invested so much in our collections to, again, get them to the point of equilibrium, I guess you could say, that to lose a piece, it's like a Jenga tower or, House of Cards missing a piece and it falls apart. It's a tragedy. And yes, I'm not taking anything away from a child losing a toy. I know that's a tragedy too, but this is a channel about adult collectors and our emotions. So yeah, not having a figure is like having a missing piece in your collection. And it's like a beacon that says, something's missing, something's missing, something's missing. And you want all those pieces in order to understand the whole collection. It's the only way to do it. It's the only way to be sure.
Oh, it's a donkey.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Can you relate to it emotionally? Or do you, just watch this video to laugh at man boys and their love for plastic figurines as adults? Well, my wife's been supportive. What can I say? She's amazing. All right. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do share this video with anyone else you think who might enjoy it or might laugh at it or just, might want to kill some time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.